And the ongoing professional learning that's offered throughout the state, I know that when the English Language Arts, English Language Development Frameworks were adopted, there's been work done out in the field, professional learning opportunities for teachers, and I know that board members do go out to these regional events, and that's one example where they were sold out. So there's a demand for ongoing professional learning, and I do see board members becoming engaged in that throughout the state, showing the support, and then also making sure that that's part of the conversation statewide.
Great. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cannella. Ms. Leipa.
Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem. So going last, a lot of my questions have been asked by my very articulate colleagues, and I appreciate that. First, I would say I thoroughly enjoyed meeting with all four of you, and it really struck me what a different background each of you had, but the passion that each of you has for education. And I think that makes you all very valuable to the board. So my question would be, and for one or all of you, is there's a lot going on at the board. There's a lot going on with education in California. What do you see as the one or two maybe biggest issues facing education in California? Please.
So almost regardless of what accountability system we eventually set on or exactly which indicator we pick, it is always the quality of the teacher, the teaching, and the learning, and what happens in that classroom that is at the heart of it. And so
Agreed.
I think that a number of teachers are still struggling to implement the new curriculum of Common Core English Language Arts and Math. I think from what I've seen already, the challenge of the next generation science standards, especially for elementary school teachers, is going to be a steep learning curve. The shift in the new ELD standards actually is a bigger shift, I think, than some people realize, in the sense that EL students must be much more integrated into the regular classroom and not cast aside. All of these changes are in that classroom. All those changes are at the heart of good learning and good teaching. And that's where, if we don't provide the resources and the training and the help and the assistance, we won't see the improvement that we think we should. So
I agree with that completely, because you're right. Everything that we do as a legislature, as you do as a board, it all happens in the classroom. So are we doing enough in all of our collective roles to make sure the funding is there, to make sure that the teachers are getting the training they need? Is there more we can do?
We recently had results from a survey that was conducted with teachers, and it is clear that they need additional training and that they want additional training to implement some of the shifts with the Common Core. And I know, being married to an educator, that it is it's challenging, but there's a lot of fulfillment in being a school teacher, but there is a lot of challenges. And so I do believe that we need more support in the classroom, at the classroom level. I think the other challenge that I would add to that is just having an understanding and a real belief that every child can learn and every child deserves to learn. I think that if we set high expectations for all our students, that could then, and we give proper training to all teachers, we could definitely have better outcomes for our students.
Very good.
You're going to hear a little bit of difference from each of us. One of the biggest challenges that I see, well, ever since I started in education, we've been talking about preparing students for the 21st century. Well, guess what? 21st century is here, right? And so I see one of the biggest challenges that we have is we are preparing students for jobs that don't exist. We are preparing them for technologies that don't exist. And so what is the future hold with all the fast pace of change? So as an educator, already now in the 21st century, how do you prepare students for this very kind of indeterminate future? So, and it, I think, lies in being creative, looking at how we educate, the structures by which we do it, and to think differently and think outside the box and serve students with our wide constituents of students. So So that's what I struggle with and think about, is how do we prepare for things that we don't know about yet? And I think the focus on skills, moving away from just drilling content is a huge part of that.
I agree. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem.
Thank you very much, Ms. Leyva. I have a question here, actually from Senator Marty Block, who is the chair of the Subcommittee on Education for the budget. And it is the following question from Senator Marty Block. When are we going to know whether the LCFF local control funding formula and the additional money it provides for disadvantaged students is having an effect? When will we have the information to answer this question? Will it be 2 years, 3 years? This is a rhetorical question. The last one, will it be 2, 3, 10 years? So when are we going to have a measurable, quantifiable result one way or the other? If in fact this is having a positive impact, obviously we're talking about LCFF plus, students, 75% school in poverty, and I'm not going to presume that you all think the same. You all walk lock in step with each other. I know you all care about California kids deeply, and you may have a little more passion about one thing over the other. So feel free and to share your thoughts and views.
What's going to happen is that the way that we measured performance, it's going to look different. We're looking at multiple measures, and that as our students are diverse, outcomes are too, and we have to look at them in different ways. So that's part of the challenge that we have in front of us this year. And so we do have now, coming up in June, the first results of our assessments that are coming, not only, so we're going to have some student level data this summer, and that's going out to parents. And so there's going to be ways of looking at it this year, next year. It's an ongoing, we're on a continuum. And so the system, as we're looking towards one coherent system that serves all students, we're going to be learning from the implementation, and we're going to be comparing that to the student outcomes at a student level. And I think we're going to have ongoing opportunities to really assess the effectiveness of these systems.
Could I ask, I want to ask, I kind of understood your answer, but I didn't understand it entirely. And I know that there are multiple factors as opposed to sort of kind of one easy, A, we're doing well, B, we're doing good, C, we're doing okay, D, we're not doing well, Is there a time frame more or less? Because the question is there's a time frame that's being asked when we see the effectiveness of the additional investments of local control funding formula. That's what I'm sort of trying to dig into.
Right, and my response to that is that there isn't a set date or time, that there are different checkpoints along the way.
Okay.
And it depends on how you measure success and how we measure success, what student success looks like on an individual level, on a subgroup level. That right now is being developed.
So then I'll let you answer, but it adds another question. What does student success look like then for you as the board members? If you can share what student success looks like.
May I respond to this?
Yes, please.
Previous question? This is, the students are taking the second round of Smarter Balance tests. Last year was the first, this year is the second. We're able now to actually start to look at a growth model with this particular type of test as opposed to the CST test before. So in answer to the time question, it actually will happen, it'll start happening this summer when the test results are made public, in that we will start to see there is growth in the right direction or there is not. And so I think that's a good indicator. It's not, we have to wait 3 years to say we are here as much as say in 3 years we think we're going to get there because we can use this growth model. That's the way, I'm not a statistician, but that's the way I understand the process that's going to come out of that. So that's To me, that's really important to know that we're looking at a growth model and not just either you make the bar or you don't.
And then let me ask the open-ended question for all of you. What student success looks like? What's it look like for you?
For me, student success is a student who graduates and it's college and career ready, meaning that the student will pursue, if they want to pursue college, but we're not, as a system, dictating who will be going to college and who's going into the workforce. And if they do pursue college, then they are ready and not taking remediation courses upon arrival. And this is, again, it's options, opportunity, and being ready for either option.
And for me, in addition to the academic side of things, for me, success is a student who feels engaged in his or her community and society and a part of that. And also someone who wants to engage the world and be and to be involved and to strive to make it even better, a better place. And some of those things that I'm saying here are more of ideas that could be at a local level. Those are more, could be local goals that are measured at that. And your question about, well, when are we going to see the return on investment? And it's a valid question. I completely understand that. In this due system, we are looking at multiple measures, and we're looking at multiple measures that could be established at the local level, at the regional level, and then at the state level. So to say, when will we reach that goal, or when it's multi-layered, and I think just knowing how we work, the statewide goals take a little bit longer as a state to reach, but the local measures can be achieved in a year or 2 years, and I think that's where we really focus a lot of our support and is at the local level, because if there's any change that can be made, it's more quickly on that investment, it is at the local level.
Okay, we'll go to what student success looks like.
Yes,
to you.
I have sort of a more holistic view of what it means to be a happy child. To feel, I think what's important is that the young person feel very good about him or herself. That whether it's the art class that the student finds success in, or the music class, or whether it's the sports team, there are all sorts of ways to feel very good about oneself, and it doesn't necessarily have to just be on a test, an algebra test. That being said, we do want each child to be academically successful enough that opportunities post-secondary education will be accessible to that young person. That if she chooses to become a nurse, or if she chooses to be a doctor, that child has the option.
Thank you. Ms. Sandoval.
What does student success look like? Students who are thriving, socially and emotionally healthy, have their basic human needs met, and students who are engaged and working with engaged educators and administrators, families who are engaged and who are, upon graduation, ready for college and career. And I'm going to add one more. I would like to see graduates who are engaged civically, contributing to our communities and our societies and our governments.
Okay, thank you very much. So, and I like what I hear, and what it's sort of kind of to itemize and go down, Ms. Ortiz Licon, options and opportunities. So you want that student to have as many options or he or she can have, and to have those opportunities are real before him or her. Ms. Sun, students who are engaged and who want to make their community, their city, their state a better place. Mr. Holliday, someone who feels good about himself, someone who's happy. Of course, academic success to be in a position so you can have opportunities, whichever opportunity that you choose. And Ms. Sandoval, someone who's thriving both socially as well as emotionally, someone who's engaged civically, who's taking responsibility and participating as an engaged citizen. And these are, I think we all agree, in a bipartisan fashion. This is what we want from young men and women. And we're in that process of how do we measure and how do we quantify the new metrics, which are multifaceted. About 80% of our kids we know in the aggregate graduate from high school in California. And out of the 80%, when we disaggregate that data, about 93% are white, 93% are Asian Americans, 77% are African Americans. So there's a 23% drop with folks who are dropping out of high school. And for Latinos, it's a little better, 3 points, so it's 80%. So we know if we gauge in and dig in a little deeper, hence LCFF plus, with African Americans and Latinos, our aggregate number can go higher, which would be ideal. So we have an overall graduation rate of 80%, and we know that if we go in deeper by disaggregating that data even more so, that in some school districts, right, we know the dropout rate is even higher. But that's our overall aggregate number. So of the 80%, and going back to the issue of choice, and I've said this on numerous occasions. In fact, I've said this the very first time when I ran for public office back in 2006. I didn't say it, I didn't use the sort of the nurse doctor, whether it was, you meant an LVN, CNA, or an RN, vis-a-vis an MD. But I've always said, listen, if a young man or woman, especially in a very poor neighborhood, decides that he or she wants to become a taxi cab driver, and she feels empowered to make that decision and has every option or opportunity before her to exercise whether I want to attend a UC school, and I can be college ready and accepted, a CSU school, or go on to community college and then eventually transfer to a four-year university, or go to a community college and get a career technical education in a job that will exist in the future as part of a new economy, as you say, for tomorrow or today. I want that choice and opportunity as opposed to society dictating, this is what you're going to do. And the reason why you're going to do this is because you didn't get whether it was a JD or a PhD or MD, whatever that job requires, whether it's an MA or MSW or LCSW, or whether it's just a BA or BS, or just getting a high school diploma. And these are the choices and the opportunities as opposed to the socioeconomic, political, and cultural factors that will dictate you're just going to wash dishes or be a gardener, period. And I like to say that, my mother, cleaned houses, the vast majority of her life, and she took care of the very wealthy in the wealthy enclaves in La Jolla. Now, if you were to ask my mother, did you want to be a housekeeper and take care of wealthy people and pick them up? I'm sure she would have said very sarcastically, that was my career choice of a lifetime. That's what I wanted to do all my life. And we know as an individual with a third grade education, the options are extremely limited. Now, obviously, she's an immigrant, so she is not from this country or this nation. So the question is opportunities and the real choices for you to make. And I do believe someone who's socially and emotionally and spiritually engaged and sound is very important, because we know that for reasons of psychotherapeutic, reasons, self-esteem, bitterness, a whole variety of issues drive young men and women in different directions. And unfortunately, sometimes when they make certain life choices, they're irreversible and they're very severe consequences. And we see how that's very pronounced, right? Obviously in communities of color, in particular at the lowest economic strata. Now, 80% of kids graduate from high school in California, of which 42% of them are A through G ready for accessibility and admissions to, let's say, to the premier, finest public university system in the world, which is the University of California, which means we have 38% of kids who have no access, either have no access or there's a very limited pool of classes to be eligible as a future admittee, to the UC school, A through G, obviously 4 years of English, 3 years of math, 2 years of lab science, 2 years of foreign language, 2 years of U.S. history, 1 year of visual arts, 1 year of some sort of extracurricular activity, whatever may be defined by the UC system. So we know that 38% of kids, if they do things well, they are not eligible to attend, forget about Cal and UCLA and UCSD, UC Merced or UC Riverside. So that is a big discrepancy that we have right now. And I want to ask you, because I believe in what you say, and I like your answers, the holistic approach, because not everyone's going to UC, and not everyone's going to Cal State University system. In fact, if we did everything right, if we lived in a post-209 or if we lived in a pre-209 era with affirmative action, not every single child will be attending because we simply don't have the enrollment slots to begin with. We don't have the capacity. So obviously that's why we have community colleges, which I think will play a major vital role in the future economy, if not the present, in California. So let's dig in deep, because I can call a chancellor at UCLA or UCSD or Cal or the president of the system, and I know what the answer will be. It'll be predictable. If they are not UC ready, college eligible, it's not our fault. It's your fault. So why don't you share your opinions on the other 38% who don't have access?
I think for me, I've been brokenhearted before in speaking with parents who feel that because their child has graduated high school, that they are eligible for a 4-year university. So there is a lot of misinformation. People who don't know that A through G is something that has the sequence. A core sequence has to be completed in order to be eligible for a 4-year institution. So I see it through a parent perspective of really raising awareness so that parents, specifically immigrant parents, understand what does it take really to be for your child to be eligible. As part of the National Council of La Raza, I oversee, I'm the Senior Director of Youth Leadership Development, so I oversee the entire pipeline. And one of our signature projects is Escalera, which is college career readiness. And we have implemented a 4-year curriculum into schools so that students understand what does it take in 9th grade, in 10th grade, in 11th grade, and in your senior year in order to be eligible and actually do your own transcript audits, be your own advocate, understand that you need to be scheduled into these courses. So we do a lot of work with students on writing your personal statement, financial aid, how to conduct an interview, how to land an internship, bringing some of the assets that some of our students who are first generation do not have, because they have assets, but they don't have that cultural or social asset of knowing how to navigate the system. So I think that there has to be more efforts to bring early awareness. I always say college starts in kinder, and I know that my kids are being exposed to it now, but you need to build that mindset early on and then obviously infuse that academic skills.
But let me ask you, I want to dig in a little deeper in that, because I admire what you do at National Council de la Raza, but this is a nonprofit 501c3 agency doing the good work, because it's a supplemental, if you will, to something that is not happening right now. So I want to ask you, through the prism of states board members of the State Board of Education, what is your role specifically? And what are you guys going to do? I mean, you may say to me, I don't agree with you, well, I don't agree with your data, I don't agree that we should focus on that. That's why I asked you the question. You want folks to be college ready irrespective of the decision that they make, right?
Finish answering? You want me
Yeah,
to-
go
okay.
And then we'll come back to you. We'll
Yeah,
come back to you.
all right.
Don't worry. We'll come back.
So for what you're saying, it resonates with me personally. Because I did not have the English language support, I actually didn't learn how to read until I was in 3rd grade. So it was just by chance that as I moved into the high school level, I was placed in a certain track, and it was one counselor who looked at some of the work I was doing in middle school and said, we need to put you in this college track. So it was one counselor who happened to just fit me in there. My parents didn't know what was required for college. I didn't know quite what was required for college, but somehow I got into the right track. So I understand what you're saying. As a state board member, one of the indicators that we are looking at on this our LCFF rubric is that college readiness. And college readiness encompasses access. Do you have that option? How many students actually have that option? Looking at A through G course, a number of students who actually have access to A through G courses. And, then looking, once as a state board, as we establish some of those indicators that are required and necessary, we also need to support districts and schools as they look for funding, whether it's shifting some of that LCFF funding to being able to offer more of these courses and have access for students to get into AP classes or into an A through G course or to an IB course, whatever that might be.
And what I think, Ina, do you need, how long do you think, so I can tell them? 7 minutes, okay. What we're going to do right now is we're going to take a 7-minute pause.
Okay.
Under Labor Code Rules, Section 5609, INA. Okay, so we're going to take about a 7-minute pause, okay?
All right.
And then we're going to come back, and then we'll finish this off. So here she comes. Here comes the vice. Okay. Ms. Sun, welcome. All right, so I don't know if you were done or if you wanted to add, Ms. Sun, and we're going to... Okay. Mr. Holliday?